interests, how is this biological computation different from computation that is maintaining homeostasis but is not tied to vital interests? To put it another way, what is the difference between biological perception and non-biological perception? Well, if I'm understanding this question correctly, it's an interesting issue, but it's somewhat philosophical. I think at the scientific / technical level, there's no difference between biological perception and non-biological perception. In both cases, you have detectors, in some sense, interacting with the rest of the world in a way that conveys information about the outside world to the system doing the detecting. The question is, what do you do with that information that you detected, and what is the purpose for which you are detecting it? And just letting the word purpose seep into your discussion there is already tilting the scales a little bit, right? When do things have purposes? So I don't know if we talked about it. I think maybe we did, but the interview with Dan Dennett here on the podcast touched on a lot of interesting things. And one of Dan's big ideas is what he calls the intentional stance, which is when you assign intent, purposes, goals to a system. Okay, and his idea, and I'm not sure, I'm not an expert on this, so but I'm just cluing you in on the idea if you want to read more about it and become an expert yourself. But the idea of someone like Dan is, look, people are physical systems, just like robots are, or computers, or other parts of the world. Sometimes it is useful and illuminating to talk about these physical systems as if they have intents. Intents is, I intend to do this, or intend to do that. Not that they're intents about their intentions. I suppose I should say they have intentions. So we take a stance towards something that attributes to it goals, purposes, intentions, whatsoever. Why? Well, because that gives us insight, because it's a useful description. It's like, why do we attribute temperature or pressure to a fluid, even though we could just talk about the individual molecules? Well, because it's a description that gives us information that is useful. It can be made to make predictions. It can be used to make predictions, etc. Likewise, if I say, oh, that person intends to shoot me, then this convey very interesting and important information that would be less usefully conveyed by just listing the state of all the neurons in their brains. And if you think that that's what's going on, then you should be asking, well, when does it become useful to attach intentionality to physical systems that are not biological systems? And the answer is, I don't know. And it could in principle be very complicated, because again, there's this sort of meta-philosophical question: what is going on? Is there something that is an essence of intentionality or biological desire to maintain homeostasis that is different at a deep ontological level than the fact that a thermostat maintains your house at the right temperature? And I think that Dan Dennett and I would say no, there's no deep essential difference at the ontological level there. But you don't add anything to a discussion of the thermostat by saying, oh, it intends or it wants or it desires to keep your house at the right temperature. Whereas you do get some insight in talking about a complex system like a person in talking that way. So there will be some crossover from one to the other. It might be subtle and unclear when we do it. It's a good thing to talk about, but I think the underlying philosophical question is more or less answered by that kind of attitude. Andrew Jaffe says, what are your thoughts on idealism? When you consider a material explanation for the universe, it's difficult to comprehend exactly where our space exists relative to other possible spaces. Could it in fact be, as idealism would tend, much like a dream, where the actual space of the dream is in someone else's head in bed? I attach almost zero credence to idealism. Idealism, for those out there who avoided this, fortunately, in their lives, idealism might be opposed to materialism or dualism as a theory of the relationship of the mind to the physical world. Okay, a dualist thinks that there is something mind-like, something world and matter-like, and they interact somehow. A materialist thinks it's just the physical material world, and the mind is sort of an emergent thing that comes out of that. Whereas an idealist thinks that there's only the mind, and the physical world is just a way of mind or minds. There's different versions of idealism, but a way of mind sort of organizing their thoughts about the world. Okay? And to me, that has zero pull as a fundamental view of reality, and not for very sophisticated reasons, for like the most basic, obvious reasons. Namely, it certainly seems like different minds construct more or less the same physical world. Like my friends don't have different ideas about what the laws of physics are than I do. Why is that? And I'm sure that a good idealist can come up with perfectly reasonable reasons why it's like that. But I have an even better reason why, namely because there really is a physical world out there. And I also think that once you understand the physical world and how it works, it's very natural things like minds would arise within it. So I don't really think that idealism is in any sense attractive. There's plenty of work to be done in understanding materialism and physicalism. Andreas Kelly says, what's your favorite movie that doesn't have anything to do with science or science fiction? Well, many of my favorite movies have nothing to do with science and science fiction. Probably my favorite movie is Casablanca. I know it's not very original. I'm not being very clever here, saying that Casablanca and Pride and Prejudice are my favorite stories ever, but you know, they're classics for a reason. And I think that these are things that I can just go back to over and over again. I almost said Brazil, which is another favorite movie of mine, but I realized that that's probably science fiction, isn't it? It probably counts as science fiction. So let's just go with Casablanca. I would easily take, depending on the mood, right? I would take The Sting as another example of a movie that I can just watch over and over again. Michael Schillingford says, in a naturalistic context, there are many sensationalistic claims that frequently draw a lot of attention. In science journalism, the word illusion is a word frequently tossed out with regard to just about anything we deal with in our daily life, whether it be chairs, consciousness, colors. Do you think sensational claims and hyper-reductionism vocabulary play a larger role in why some reject naturalism? So I'm not 100% sure I am appreciating the question here, but I think what you're saying is that there are people who claim or are naturalists, that is to say they think that there's only one world, the natural world, there's no extra supernatural world. And those people sometimes refer to things that we know and love, like chairs, consciousness, colors, as illusions. That is, and you're wondering whether or not this is overly sensational. So I don't, it doesn't really affect my feeling about them to think that they're overly sensational. I think that the people who make those claims are generally just trying their best. They're trying to understand how the world works. Someone who works on cosmology and quantum mechanics and relativity, I am well aware that doing our best to understand how the world works can lead us to making statements that to someone who hasn't studied these things seem bizarre and way out and sensational, right? But if we think they're true, we should make them anyway. So the charge of overly sensationalizing things is not a very one that I worry about too much. Now, I also don't agree that it makes sense to talk about these things as illusions. To me, when you say something is an illusion, it's a trick. It's giving people the impression that something is there when it's really not. And I think that things like consciousness and free will and chairs are there. They're not illusions, okay? Now, I know what they mean. What they mean is that these things, chairs or free will or whatever, don't have fundamental essences. They really just mean they're emergent. That's really what they mean. But I don't want to attach the word illusion to emergent things. I think emergent things are just as real. Why? Because they give us a handle on reality, because they help us understand what is going on and make predictions. That's the criterion for being real. Like if you are starving in a desert and you think you see an oasis and it's just an illusion, that does not give you a useful handle on reality. That will cause you to crawl toward that oasis and you would be wrong. Okay, so that's an illusion. You're actually being tricked, and thinking that it's there is hurting you in your attempts to make it through the day and understand the world. Whereas chairs and consciousness and colors, I think, help you get through the world, get through the day. Paul Hess says, does dark energy deserve to be part of the pie chart of the composition of our universe as long as